Hi, I'm Viviana,
And I'm Danielle.
and we're here to inform you about a very important topic: global warming's effects on agriculture and the economy.
So, what is global warming anyway? Is it even real? Why is it important? Why should I care? These are all great questions.
Well, global warming is defined as the gradual increase in the overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, supposedly caused by greenhouse gases.
Does it even exist? Well, we think it does. Why? Well, here's some proof. The graph on the left is showing how carbon dioxide concentration is increasing over the years, and the graph on the right is showing that the sea surface temperature is gradually increasing as well.
As for why it is important, well, it negatively affects the food production in developing nations. While worrying about urban heat waves, polar bears, and forest fires may be the first thoughts to come to mind when the topic of global warming is brought up, those effects are actually not the most likely. What seems to be most likely consequences of global warming are the severe impacts on developing nations' food production. This graph is showing the projected number of people at risk of hunger in 2080, plotted against different levels of atmospheric CO2 concentrations and associated climate change. If the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere continues to rise, so will undernourished people. Why? We'll get back to that later.
Why should we care about it? How exactly will global warming affect us? Food prices. With additional investments in technology and adaptation, the effect of climate change on actual agriculture production could be reduced. But because these inputs raise the cost of production, prices would also rise.
Understand? Good, because all this is leading up to the main question we're going to be addressing.
What effects does global warming have on agriculture and the economy in developing nations?
The associated impacts of high temperatures, altered patterns of precipitation, increased frequency of extreme events such as droughts and floods, and unstable weather patterns will combine to depress yields and increase production risks in many world regions. Global warming causes weather to be very unpredictable due to the excessive amount of carbon being released into the atmosphere, which makes it harder for farmers to know when and what to plant since they are very unsure of how the weather will be.
Due to all of these negative effects, we are already starting to notice changes in types and quantity in the food we can grow, which is causing there to be higher demand and higher prices. By the year 2080, according to the Center for Global Development, agriculture for the developing nations is expected to have decreased by 21%. However, there are theories that the increased concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere will be good for the plants and work to counteract the other negative effects brought on by global warming, which would mean that agriculture in the developing nations would only have decreased by 9%. But even if this carbon fertilization is true, 9% is still a lot.
Developing nations rely heavily on agriculture as a source of economic growth. So, as the climate change continues to increase, food and money will become more scarce. While the U.S. has scientific assistance to respond with appropriate changes in crops and techniques of cultivation, developing countries currently have little, if any, such capacity to adapt.
We believe in global warming because of all the clear effects that have come from it. And we believe that it will begin to negatively affect us as it already has with the developing countries. We agree with the validity of the predictions of the studies shown that by 2080 the number of undernourished people in developing countries will rise if the CO2 continues to increase. On the other hand, if one were to not believe that global warming was real, then they would have a different take on the evidence, but hopefully we have altered any skeptical opinions of global warming with our data.
Until 2080, it will be hard to know for sure if the predictions of these studies come true. Any critical study to our case would have to be done over a long period of time in order to be completely accurate. However, we believe that scientists are doing well with the information they have in order to predict what the future holds as far as agriculture and the economy goes in developing nations.